All right, Yonason, are you ready for your 10 questions?
We'll find out in just a moment.
Yes, I appreciate that. Here we go. Question number 1. If you had to choose between the two, which one would you pick? Batman's utility belt or a fanny pack?
Batman's utility belt, no doubt about it.
Wow. Well, what if it's empty? You have to accessorize it on your own. Does it matter if it comes empty or not?
Oh, I assume that the utility belt came with the utilities.
So you got to read the fine print. He gets all the utilities. Absolutely. Batman's utility belt. Question number 2. What is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is, hands down, no argument allowed, best movie ever made, Casablanca.
Get out. That's a pretty strong affirmative here.
I have an open mind on most things. This is not open for discussion.
The book is closed. What closes the book on Casablanca?
Because you have the story of humanity told through the story of 3 people.
Ooh.
And it's so extraordinary. I mean, this movie is 60 years old, I think? 70 years old, maybe? And black and white, no car chases, no explosions, no special effects, and it is a tremendous story of love, of commitment, of loss, of redemption. There's just nothing has ever been made that compares to it.
Done. I'll have to go watch that.
Oh yeah.
All right. Favorite quote. It's question number 3.
Oh gosh, I oscillate, but I'll give you the one I have on my voicemail. From Mark Twain: "Always do right. You'll gratify some and astonish the rest."
That sounds very ethical.
How about that?
How about that? Who knew? Who knew? All right, question number 4. What is the best advice you have ever received?
Always have something to say when you're invited to a function.
Ooh.
Because I'm a community rabbi, and I often attend bar mitzvahs, wedding celebrations, social events, and very often in our community, rabbis are asked to speak. And we're not always given a lot of notice.
Rabbi, come on up. Would you? Yeah.
And so the best advice by far I ever got is always have something to say when you arrive. And in my community, I have cultivated a reputation of being able to speak with no notice whatsoever.
Wow.
And it's because of that advice, I always have something in mind. I just formulate, if I have to speak, what am I going to talk about? Put it into a few minutes, something that's relevant, and it has served me well.
When did you get that advice? Do you remember?
Oh yes, I remember exactly when.
No?
It was one of my rabbis. And it was really quite an interesting situation because I was in a rabbinic training program, and our scheduled speaker didn't show up. So they ran next door. They found one of the administrative rabbis in the office and asked him to step in. He came in and he said, "Now, this is a good example of a situation that you may have to face often in your professional career, being asked to speak without notice." And he looked around the room and he smiled and said, "So who's first?"
That's fantastic.
And, I was one of those who volunteered because I figured, well, this is a good place to...
You did. You were one of the ones that
to
volunteered.
try it out. But thank you to Rabbi Weinbach for giving me that advice. It has really made a huge difference in my career.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's rewind the clock a little bit. Before the career, before the schooling, back when you were a kid, what was one of your favorite childhood toys?
Ooh. I suppose Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
I was very into Hot Wheels for a while. Maybe it was because I was too young to drive. Maybe it was the defying the laws of physics to some degree.
Oh yeah, those cars
You
could
can do
fly.
things, but yeah, well, they could fly, and they did fly, and they didn't always fly in the direction they were supposed to fly.
Right.
But
Did it matter whether it was a Hot Wheel or a Matchbox car? Because those are different.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, yes. Matchbox cars were for they were toys for playing. Hot Wheels were adventurous. They were a microcosm of the daring and the risk taking and the excitement of life.
Yeah. I get that. Okay. Well, as long as we're in childhood, when you were a kid, experiencing the adventure and excitement of Hot Wheels, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I suppose like many kids, I went through a number of different incarnations, but interestingly, the one thing I always wanted to do was to be a writer. I started writing when I was about 7 years old, and I love stories. And subsequently, I became involved in a philosophy, in a intellectual discipline, and a culture of storytelling. As Judaism teaches through stories, our brains are wired to respond to stories. Studies have shown that people who read literary fiction demonstrate more moral sensitivity than people who read nonfiction.
Wow.
Because when you can take the information and you implant it in a narrative, it makes it real, it makes it memorable, it sinks into us on both a conscious and a subconscious level. And I always wanted to communicate through writing, and even though I never made a successful career of it, I have published 6 books and hundreds of articles, but
wait,
even when I speak,
you just kind of gloss over
Yeah.
that. Even though I've published 6 books and hundreds of articles, I mean, I don't know how we're defining success, but that seems pretty successful to me. That you,
well, okay, okay, I'll buy that, I'll accept that. But let's say I have not been successful in a remunerative way.
that
I made a few bucks. I made a few bucks on my books.
I shall accept that as well.
I never cracked one of the New York Times best-selling lists or Wall Street Journal, any of those things. So.
All right. Well, here we go. Question number 7. What brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Wow, I could give you a whole dissertation on this one.
You
I
could
think
wrait it
that,
down in a book.
Yes, well, it's something I talk about. My books are oral now, oral
Right.
books.
Well, you're a phenomenal speaker, so bring it on.
Well, thank you. But what was the question again?
What was your favorite? What brings you joy? I was going to ask you what your favorite.
Oh, thank you. Right. So the whole concept of joy, whether it was John Adams, who I think was the one who really implanted the phrase, or Thomas Jefferson, who put in the Declaration of Independence, this pursuit of happiness, insidious little soundbite. You don't pursue happiness. You pursue purpose. And by pursuing purpose and meaning and mission and vision, the natural byproduct is joy, is happiness. There are 8 different words in Hebrew that translate in some form of joy or happiness. And when you look at the etymology of those words, they all relate to some kind of progress or growth or forward motion. So what really gives me joy is when I can take the talents that I have naturally, that I work to develop, and use them in a way that I'm fulfilling my potential in a way that is benefiting others.
Absolutely.
there is no greater joy. It's the COVID has been tough for those of us in the speaking business because conferences have been shut down. We're trying to make it work virtually. It's just not the same virtually, either financially or practically speaking. There is nothing like standing on a stage in front of a group of people who are receptive to a message that is going to help them with the quality of their lives. There is nothing like it. And while I would do it for free, I prefer to get paid, but
well, there's bills.
Yeah, there are bills, those sorts of mundane things, but it is such a source of joy and pleasure and fulfillment to have that dynamic interacting with a group of people and providing them something that's truly going to improve their lives.
Wow. To live on purpose and be out there speaking in front of people. That's huge. Well, let's flip the script then. What brings you dread?
I am a natural introvert, which is not unusual for speakers, interestingly enough. When I was in junior high school, I really wanted to try out for drama, but I was too shy to ask where I needed to go to audition.
No. So it didn't happen.
It never happened. Which, okay, water under the bridge. One of the hardest things I do in my life is pick up the phone and call somebody I don't know.
Ooh. So the dread is to give you an answer. I think what really gives me dread is the fear of not demonstrating to others the ability of my ability or the value of what I offer. Yeah, that would be the opposite of the purpose piece, right?
Yeah, there's if I can get on the stage, I know I'm going to do a good job, but I don't have the same confidence in selling myself to get on the stage.
Right. I can't relate to that at all.
Yeah, I'm probably the only speaker in the business who suffers from
right. It is an interesting paradox that a lot of speakers struggle with that. Well,
yeah, the safest place in the world is on stage in front of 1,000 people, right?
Yeah, because you're in.
Put me in a cocktail party, and I'll just go hide in the corner.
This is why we get along so well. Like you and I are very similar, very similar. Okay, question number 9. We are on the home stretch here. The question is, what do you want to accomplish but cannot do on your own?
That's interesting. Change the world.
On Saturday? But what are you going to do on Sunday? That's a big thing. I could see why you would need help with that.
Yeah. That's. It would be nice to think I could do it all on my own. But there's a certain politician that I don't quote very often, except for one phrase. It takes a village. It takes a community. You need partners. You need collaborators. You need allies. We just can't do things on our own. And the really successful leaders are the ones who know how to lead, which to my mind means bring out the best in those around them. Empower others to accomplish what they can accomplish. Create the nucleus around which a team or a community or an organization coalesces. I've been told that the best CEO does nothing. But the way Jim Collins describes it in Good to Great is he gets all the right people on the bus, or she gets all the right people on the bus, and makes sure they're on the right seats.
Right.
And that keeps everyone working together to do what they do. You can't micromanage. It doesn't work. It breeds resentment. It's inefficient. It's ineffective. And you can't let people just go off on their own. There has to be some unifying influence. And that's what real leadership is all about.
Well, I could ask you so many more questions about that, but for the sake of our conversation today, I'm gonna bring us home with question number 10. We're gonna wrap it up with this. Here it comes. What do you hope people say about you after you're gone?
He changed lives for the better. Ultimately, that's what we're here for. Now, really, what we're here for is to change ourselves. And there's a famous soundbite. I don't know where it comes from. It's been attributed to a lot of different people. But it's a person looking back at the end of his life, reflecting, and he says, "When I was young, I wanted to change the world. As I started to grow up, I realized I wasn't going to change the world, so I decided I'll change my country. I saw I wasn't going to change my country, so I decided, well, I'll change my community. And I got older still, and that wasn't happening, so I said, well, I'll change my family. And eventually, he said, I'm just going to try and change myself. And I like to add to that one line. By changing myself, I change the world."
That's it. Yonason, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
It has been my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me.